Hello, we are on episode 9 of the Brand Spotlight. We will be speaking to Kent of Neuro, and we'll learn all about that. First, I want to welcome our audience. We are streamed live on LinkedIn Live, YouTube, and Facebook, all the Brand Spotlight. You just search those names and you could find it there, and we interview brands about their brand story, the mission of their brand, how they came to market, and really the journey from start to getting it into their customers' hand. Just before we start, I will mention the sponsor of the show is the agency I've been building up over the last several years, Brands Connect. That's brands with a Z, BRANDZ, and we focus on custom tailoring campaigns and make it very, very brand specific. This show has actually been an outgrowth of the agency. Without further ado, we'll get right into the interview. Hello, Kent. How are you today?
Good. How are you doing? It's been a while.
Yeah, it has been a while, and we could, I guess, talk about how we met in a minute. But we've actually been meeting each other for quite some time. The first time we met, you were pitching at a co-working space. It was some sort of pitch event, and we went and we met there. We spoke there a bit, and then before I know it, a couple months, maybe a year, I don't remember how much later, I see you on the big screen of Shark Tank. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
right. Was it Shopify? We won like the Shopify pitch contest. I remember.
I
And then before
don't
that, we
think
were in
so.
WeWork or
It
maybe
was at
Techstar.
WeWork, and it had something to do with they had some products placement thing. I don't remember exactly.
We
Possibly.
were entering so many of those at some point that yeah, it was wild. But no, a lot's happened. It's been a crazy. We've been in business for 7 years now. So we've entered into this phase of, I guess, small business. We're in almost 10,000 retail stores. We're on Amazon as like a top 5 product in our category. Our e-commerce site continues to grow, and it's been wild. I think the big thing is, as a brand, right? It's how do you get your name out there as much as possible, and we're definitely entering into that phase of turning ourselves into a more recognized brand.
Yeah, so we'll get into that. I've seen you at shops and CVS, but where we usually start off these interview is the one question I generally ask. In a sentence or two, how would you define your brand?
So Neuro is a functional gum and mint business. So we try to make health as approachable and convenient as possible.
Approach health as convenient and as approachable as possible, and it's specifically gums and mints. Did I get that correctly?
Specifically, exactly. So the whole idea is, instead of supplements that sit in your medicine cabinet or come in the form of pills and gummy bears and whatever it happens to be, we want to create portable health that fits into your daily routine versus the other way around. So in the form of gum and mints, it's shareable. They're portable. You can take them with you wherever you want. They actually work more effectively because you absorb the nutrients in a buccal and sublingual way. And they're way cheaper, for $3.99 a pack in retail, a lot cheaper if you buy online. You could have a pack of gum that freshens your breath and is giving you the nutrients that you need.
Cool. Would you call yourself a gum and mint company or a health company, or you really focus on harmonizing the two?
Focusing on harmonizing too. We say we're a health and wellness company, but only because gum and mints traditionally don't have a health and wellness component to them outside of like whitening your teeth.
Cool. So now I want to so you are very clear with what your company does. You're able to say that very, very quickly. So that's pretty cool.
7
And
years of practice.
are you focused on those specific two product categories, or do you see yourself expanding?
Gum and mints for now, but we have a patent, at least on our flagship product, for confectionaries as a whole. So that falls in line with, chocolates, whatever, jelly beans, whatever falls under the category of confectionaries.
Cool. And I guess we'll get into why you chose that. There's so many ways to get into health and wellness. But before that, I want to go into a little bit of your origin story. So just and I guess before the origin story, you've been clear you have two different product categories. How many products do you have in each category? Do you keep it to just one product per category, or do you have multiple products in each category?
So we focus in two ways, like horizontal and vertical. So from a vertical perspective, it's always going to be gum and mints. Like that is the form factor that we are selling. From a horizontal perspective, we think about it in functions. So we have an energy and focus product, for example, a calm and clarity. We just came out with a health and vitality, which is our multivitamin gum and mint product. And then we're going to keep expanding the functions so that all your needs can fit in your pocket.
Cool. So how many products do you currently have?
We have three functions, gum and mints across those three functions, and each of them come in two flavors.
What are the functions? If you could explain
Oh,
those to
so
us.
energy and focus. So we have something with a nootropic mix of natural caffeine, L-theanine, B6, and B12 vitamins. So that is in lieu of coffee or energy drinks or any other products that are there to give you a boost. Um, we have calm and clarity, which has KSM66 ashwagandha as the primary ingredient, but also GABA, L-theanine, and vitamin D3. So that product is meant to provide more of like a sense of clarity without the caffeine. And then our final product that we just released, Health and Vitality, is a multivitamin so that your gum and mints should be able to not just serve the purpose of freshening your breath or just being something sugary, but give you nutrients as well. And uh, yeah, our Health and Vitality is supposed to just be like uh, putting health into your pocket. Like that's the tagline for it.
Cool. So I think I got the three categories. One was the upgraded coffee replacement. When I use the word upgraded, L-theanine, those B vitamins. You're starting to hear lots of people put them in. The other one was the clarity, which is all the stuff minus a lot of the stuff that I'm starting to see in all the health food biohacking space,
Yeah. The
etc.
ashwagandha,
But
yeah.
but
GABA.
without the caffeine, without that stimulus that sometimes gets
Hmm.
people jittery and stuff. And then the third is the multivitamin. Now you did allude to the reason why you chose this form before. You said it's shareable, etc. I wanna just focus on that. All these three things I could get in a variety of ways. Why did
Hmm.
you choose to focus on the gum and mint function?
So one, in terms of like a variety of ways, I guess people have released it in the form of chocolates or beverages or the traditional supplement style format. So to tackle each one of those, instead of a supplement style format, we are able to be put into your pocket and you could take us whenever, wherever. So there's that approachability factor. And the fact that you're chewing on the product means that you're buccally absorbing all the ingredients. So it works a lot faster, like up to 5 times faster, based on some scientific articles, compared to swallowing a pill or swallowing something, having to get it digested into through your bile, your liver, and in your stomach. And by that time, a lot of the extraction gets lost. So, from a scientific standpoint, that's one. Two, tackling against chocolates. Chocolates melt. They're sugary. They're not good for your teeth. And we want to be something and they're high calorie. We are 0 calories across the board, more or less. Like I think our mints have 1 calorie or something, but we're a low calorie alternative that has no sugar in any of our products. So you could eat it without worrying about cavities or any of the other side effects that come with eating fatty things. And then from the from the drink perspective, drinks are typically only one serving, cost about $3 to $4, so way more expensive. We come with either 9 servings or 12 servings, depending on gum or mint. And on top of that, we don't need to be refrigerated. You don't have to worry about spilling. You're not going to keep a drink in your purse or your backpack after you already open it. So most of the time, you have to carry it around or drink it in one go. So, and again, we work way faster because you absorb it buccally and sublingually without the bathroom breaks and all those other things that come with it.
I want to harp on that. I am not a scientist, but if you would ask me, I would assume the exact opposite on that number one. I would assume that if I absorb something, if I swallow something and it goes into my insides, actually my body absorbs it better. And
Yep.
I'm hearing the opposite from you. So could you take us a little bit about how that works for the layman?
Yeah, of course. So it's called buccal and sublingual absorption. So sublingual being like under the tongue, buccal being from the cheeks. There's capillaries across, the inside of your mouth, and if we talk about like certain drug intake methods, acid, for example, is something that you take under your tongue. Lozenges that they provide, ketamine is another example of like a new age drug that is more taken through a sublingual format. Works so much quicker because one, in terms of like how far it has to go, it's not that you're absorbing it through your capillaries and then it goes into your stomach, which also has capillaries. You're absorbing it through your capillaries and the blood vessels that line your cheeks, and now it's into your bloodstream. So when you look at the multiple ways of taking in vitamins, there's intravenous, which you typically see the IV format, which is usually the fastest. There's snorting, which is a very obvious one because of the capillaries that are in your nose. There's buccal, and then there's digestive. So if you consider all those methodologies, sublingual falls into a much faster category than having to swallow something, wait for it to get digested for any of the systems within your stomach, liver, large, small intestine to absorb the nutrients.
Wow, that was fascinating. I got some
So
a little bit of science in
now you
this
know.
show.
Yeah.
That's very interesting, and I do want to get to why you were really the first to quote unquote discover and bring this to market. But before that, and probably with the next questions, that story will come. I
Mhm.
want to learn more about your origin story. How did this happen? Overnight, one day you decided I want to open a gum and mint health company. I'm sure there's more to that. What were one of the first one or two things that really inspired you on this journey?
Yeah, so I mean, Ryan and I both come from athletic backgrounds. Ryan used to run cross country and track and was captain of his uh, cross country and track team
So
in high school.
if I interrupt you, we don't know who the audience doesn't know who Ryan
Oh,
is yet.
Ryan's my co-founder. Yeah,
Yeah.
so Ryan's my co-founder, and he was uh, captain of his cross country and track team. I was training very seriously in martial arts. I was traveling in Thailand, fighting in the stadiums out there, training with the Japanese Olympic judo team, training with the Japanese Imperial Guards at the Imperial Palace. And during that time, while studying neuroscience, I was mixing supplements in my own room because I realized that the supplements I wanted to take were not necessarily available. I got really deep into the world of nootropics, and
Could you
um,
explain what nootropics are? I know it's a buzzword that people
yeah.
throw
So
around, but what does that mean to us?
nootropics are cognitive enhancing supplements that have minimal to no side effects. That's the easiest way to explain it. But it's also a combination of supplements that are primarily focused on helping boost the brain. So modafinil is an example. Adderall is not really an example because it has side effects, but it has nootropic qualities. You know, green tea, coffee, you call those nootropics as well, based on like the broader general sense of the word. But while we're training, I'm mixing these pills. And when Ryan was 19, actually, and this is my last year of college, I'm a year older than him, he got into a really bad snowboarding accident and shattered his spine. So he's in a wheelchair. But in the process of him going back to school, going through his multiple surgeries, I was giving him these supplements. I was taking them myself, and then in a scuba diving trip that we were both taking because he wanted to get certified, despite the fact that he became paraplegic. We both looked at each other and said, "Well, pills are like fine, but they look weird when you take pills in public. Especially when they come in a baggie and you mix them yourself. So, how do we turn it into a format that's more shareable?" And it immediately dawned to us that it's gum. and mints, things that people share already. But in the traditional space, no one was taking gum and mints and turning them into something that was actually healthy for you. And it became so obvious to us that it's like, what if we put the benefits? We were so tired, and we were like, what if we put the benefits of coffee into a gum and a mint? Oh my God, what if we put like clarity into a gum mint or multivitamins? And it just kind of kept expanding. Like, what if we could put the entire medicine cabinet, all these supplements into gum and mint format, and people have health in their pocket and these needs in their pocket at all times? And that's how the idea was born. We launched on Indiegogo after a year of doing research and development, hit our goal in less than 3 days. So we knew the demand was there. About a month into our campaign, or when the campaign was ending, Dr. Oz brought us onto his show. Like, I just got a call from his producers, and that just took us to the national stage. That was incredible. Time Magazine wrote about us, Forbes 30 under 30, Shark Tank, like you saw. And it's been an incredible journey. And now the next phase is like, let's push farther into retail. Let's become a household name and turn ourselves into, the what Red Bull did for energy drinks, what 5 Hour Energy did for that category of energy drinks, to bring it onto the cash register. Let's bring gum and mints to, and the entire supplement department to the cash register, and make it as accessible as possible.
Wow, that was a great synopsis, but I just want to go a little bit deeper on your origin story.
Yeah.
Uh, initially, when you thought, oh, it would be a great idea, you're trying to get certified scuba diving. Did I catch that
hmm
correctly?
Scuba certified.
Scuba certified, and then you realized you wanted to take these supplements, but you didn't want to. You wanted to do it in a way that wouldn't attract weird attention. So you thought about putting it into gum. Was that purely for you, or did you right away see that as a business opportunity?
I mean, we didn't see it as a business opportunity because neither of us come from backgrounds in business. Ryan was at data and strategy at Hulu. I was working, making music. I was at an affiliate of Sony, and then making children's books and doing like children's branding for places like the Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf, and painting murals for the city of LA. So I came more from a creative background, Ryan from the more data and strategy background, and both of us at some point realized, like, hey, like, why don't we start this like entrepreneurship journey? Like, because we have this great product that we decide we want to use for ourselves. There has to be others that want to use this product similar to us. And in the process, it just kind of kept developing into something more and more.
How long did it go from making the first prototype specifically for yourself to enjoy for your scuba certification excursion to I would say I'll use just the timeline. I know it's an evolution, but to, let's say, launching on Kickstarter.
Yeah, it was about a year, and that was us moving pretty fast, and not knowing any business. So just like, grinding on this idea.
I want to go a little bit earlier into your origin story. How did you meet Ryan?
Ryan and I were in Japanese class together at UC San Diego. So we went to college together. And then we just became immediate friends just based on our backgrounds in sports, the connection there. And then our yeah, like we just connected on so many different things. He speaks Japanese also. I speak Japanese. He had this immense like training background. So we were both aligned on from a sports perspective, and then just from like video games, like we both love playing video games. So yeah,
Cool. What a fun story. Now let's get back into the business and the launch of the Kickstarter. My bad. Indiegogo, right?
yeah, more or
Yeah.
less the same thing. Yeah.
So at that time, even though it was a few years ago, what year was that you launched the Indiegogo, if you remember,
That was
or
two.
around?
Yeah, that was 2014. I want to say October 2000. Oh, sorry, September 2014. Yeah,
Oh,
September
okay.
10th.
Okay, so at that point, you could. you could just launch a Indiegogo and you'll get some traction. But for the most part, that's generally not enough. What I found is those companies are just tech platforms, but they're generally not marketing platforms. How did you go from launching an Indiegogo to getting it funded?
So I was a big part of the nootropics communities on Reddit and these different forums. So I was it was somewhat of a small group of us, I guess, at that time. And this is like, no one knew what nootropics were, like 7, 8 years ago. It's like a buzzword now. But I was mixing supplements, we're all talking to each other. And then when we were ready to launch this product, I basically went in. I knew it was something people wanted, at least in that group, and said, "Hey, like we finally launched this product. Come check it out. We'll love to get some feedback." And they were the ones that kind of came in and helped make it a reality, which is so crazy.
So you already had a community, and that means you're building up a community. I assume that you built up the community just for your own exploration of nootropics.
It was 100% lucky. Like it was pure, exactly. Like I was in this community and building it up purely on the basis for my own interest and engaging with them. And it just so happened that, you know, that's one of the core things of business, right? Being able to tap into a community, at least a niche one, before you expand into a broader audience base.
Yeah, but you were no I would imagine that before you turned it into business, you were already spending a tremendous amount of time adding value or asking questions in those communities without without any agenda because you were just trying to make it for yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's probably why it worked much better. I'm just curious if you how those principles could be reverse engineered. That's becomes a little bit harder.
Yeah, I mean, there's a book like Crossing the Chasm, that I'm a big fan of, and it just talks about like the core demographic that you get. Um, so for us, it was biohackers, like the people I was engaging with, the biohackers, and then from biohackers, what's like an adjacent community or cohort that you tap into until you cross the chasm into the mainstream market. And I was very fortunate to find that early traction in a very niche community of people that was able to slowly expand its way out into a larger cohort base.
Wow. So I know biohacking has also become, and biohackers has also become a buzzword.
Yeah.
So can you break that down for us? What's the typical definition of a biohacker?
Someone who hacks their biology to enhance it. So, it ranges from the invasive, which would be I have friends, that have their Tesla key in this part of their palm so that they basically just
This will be
like,
restreamed as an audio podcast. So he just
oh, okay.
pointed to
Yeah, yeah,
his
yeah.
palm, and they literally implanted it inside their palm.
Yeah, they implant inside their palm uh, the Tesla chip that they melted down, and so that they can open their car. you know, I have friends that have like RFID tattoos. So that's the invasive side. The non-invasive side is within the supplementation that you have, different sleeping habits that you may try to um, try to incorporate into your life. Different types of workout mechanisms, uh, what you eat, how you fast. It's become a fairly broad category. Biohacking as a whole has become like very broad, but it ranges from you know changing sleeping habits all the way to implanting things into your body.
Yeah, I'm familiar with it from the no toxin coffee that one of these companies made famous, and they have like a whole biohacking conference. But
Oh,
yeah,
cool.
that's the general impression that I get. So it makes sense that your product would fit directly into both the nootropic and in the biohacking communities. They're both have been becoming less and less so, a little bit of an intimidating community. People are a little bit intimidated to get into it. So I like that the gums and mints are a very approachable way to get into that community or to start experimenting. When I say that community is to apply those benefits that the people in those communities are promoting in a very non-invasive, non-intrusive, simple way.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Much less intrusive for sure.
Yeah. Now, what was your goal with that Indiegogo? Do you remember the number?
20,000.
And that was enough for, why did you come up with 20,000?
It was how much we spent on the R&D to get the minimum order quantity for our manufacturers. So we basically set it as like, okay, if this is the MOQ and the money we need for the MOQ for the product, like, let's see if we could pre-sale.
What does, for our audience, what does MOQ stand for?
Minimum order quantity from the manufacturer.
And when you said it covered the R&D, that also included the order?
Included the order, yeah. Yeah.
Got you. So you just wanted to see if you could get it into production, and as long as you could pay for that, you could get it funded for that expense, you're willing to put it into one production run. Did I get that correctly?
Yeah. I mean, we fronted that money. I had saved up money from me working at the music studio, and then Ryan saved up money from working at Hulu. So we both invested 10K into the company. Um, but yeah. So even if we didn't reach our goal, we would have had a production run. And, a week after the Indiegogo launch, the product came to my apartment because we didn't have a fulfillment house or anything. And I was like the one shipping boxes out of the apartment to our customers.
Cool. At that point, were you both still working your full-time jobs?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
Like
so you
for
didn't
about like a year into the business.
so you weren't risking your jobs, you were just risking your bandwidth and spending all your time and energy.
I mean, I was pulling probably an all-nighter a week at that time.
Wow.
It was pretty intense.
Yeah, wow. Different strategies.
I know. I wouldn't recommend that to anyone after having gone through it. It was like for like the first year. I mean, you could ask any of my friends. I was literally pulling an all-nighter probably at least twice a month, just based on the amount of work that had to be done.
Wow, and you weren't able to outsource that work?
You slowly start to learn how to outsource. It was just something that didn't even cross my mind. And then slowly, as I started learning more about business, we have a fully expanded out team. But at the same time, I know how to do customer service now. I know how to ship boxes. I know how to fulfill orders, make a website, like all the things that typically you hire someone for. I just learned how to do and did them myself.
Wow. How much did you get from that campaign, that initial campaign? How much did you
I think it
raise?
was, I think it was like 32,000 in the
Okay,
end.
so a
Yeah.
little bit above expectations, but not crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Like 150% above expectation.
So that was your first market. Do you remember how many orders or customers you had from that or not?
No, I mean, average order was what, um, like $50 or something at most. 50. Yeah. So whatever the math breaks out to be.
Got
Maybe.
you.
Yeah.
And I assume it was expensive because usually the smaller your order quantities are, the more expensive it is. So I assume it was more expensive than what it is at retail now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Definitely. Or, our product margins continue to improve.
Got you. What was the initial feedback from your first batch of customers?
A lot of people loved it because it worked. A lot of people said it tasted like absolute garbage. So, you know, we immediately went back to the drawing board on the flavor. We took that customer feedback and got a flavor house. We work with like a massive flavor house now, but we got a flavor house, improved the flavor, looked at different ingredients that could help improve the flavor, and yeah, that was probably the biggest thing. And then there was an older demographic that came in after Dr. Oz and said the gum stuck to their dentures, and we were like, dentures. So that's when we decided to make mints because we knew that there was a demographic above 65 that was actually really into our products.
Cool. Now, I don't know what a flavor house is. Can you enlighten me and our audience?
Yeah, a flavor house is a company that specifically focuses on how products are flavored. So they'll have essential oils, they'll have scents, they'll have different types of mints. It's basically just like it's like an encyclopedia, or sorry, it's like a library rather of all these different ingredients that they blend together to make something taste the way it does.
Interesting. So they have to take your product ingredients, keep whatever you want about your product, and then merge that with all their flavor profiles in order to develop a flavor profile that specifically works for you.
Yeah, so I mean, for us, we work with one of the biggest mint manufacturers in the United States and mint farms in the United States. So they presented us with like 20 different types of mints that have like, the typical spearmint to the wintergreen that all of us know, spearmint, wintergreen, but then there's like these Indian style mints that maybe have a little hint of chocolate in them. There's mints that have a little sense of like a cardamom style flavor or a smell to that. And so you start expanding out, it becomes so nuanced, and it's incredible to learn about. Even with cinnamon, you know, if you go to a store and you have like Red Hots or tamales, the candy, that cinnamon tastes very different from the cinnamon that you're putting into a hot chocolate, you know,
Yeah.
or a candy cane. Yeah,
Cool. Wow. So much to learn.
yeah, it's cool. It's cool.
So what was the next step after the Indiegogo? You went back to the drawing board to change to work on the flavor profile. And then what was the next step? Did you go back to market?
Yeah,
Go to the pitch competitions? What was the
pitch
status there?
competitions, go to market, building out our e-commerce. I mean, the biggest thing we realized was that most people have never heard of ingredients like this in gum and mint. So we invested a lot into PR actually to try to get as many articles as possible. Me and my COO, Tyler, were emailing basically every journalist out there that was talking about confectionaries and telling them like, hey, there's a new confectionery in town that's actually good for you. And having all these people write articles about us until it, eventually hit an inflection point. And now, like Joe Rogan organically mentions us in a lot of his podcasts. So that's fantastic, obviously. A lot of podcasters like Ryan Holiday talks about us from time to time also. Um, Shark Tank, was like being on national television to tell people about this was great too. Yeah, it keeps going
Ha-
on.
Have you ever done paid campaigns with any of the people who mentioned you, or these are all been organic or in the media?
Most of them have been organic. So Joe Rogan was talking about our product, and so we decided to pay and do like a paid campaign with them for like two runs. Um, a lot of them are organic, though. I would say, yeah,
Cool. And that was right after what was the timing between investing in PR? And when you say you investing means it sounds like from what I'm hearing is that at that time you already expanded your team to at least another person, your COO Tyler, and
yeah.
you and him actually did the work, did that nitty-gritty work of finding every journalist you could find in the confectionery space and emailing them.
Oh yeah, yeah. It was a lot of work.
Why did you choose to do it in-house as opposed to outsourcing and finding an agency to do it?
To save money. Yeah. I mean, you have to be. We never raised money at that point. Like, we didn't raise money until like a few years into our business, and even then, we haven't even raised that much money relative to all these other brands. So we were just like, we've been so scrappy. You know, Ryan and I together own like basically almost all the business still, like a big majority of the business. So, um, yeah, just being scrappy, learning, understanding everything until getting to the phase where it's like, okay, well, let's put the right players in place now.
Cool. And at that was how long did you start the PR campaign after the kicks after the Indiegogo?
Maybe
I might
like
need to adjust my camera here.
maybe like 6 months. I mean, kind of almost immediately, to be honest. I don't have a clear understanding of the timelines just because it was
Okay.
such a blur during that time. But it was yeah, I would say almost like immediately after. Tyler, our COO, our current COO now, was my roommate during this whole period, and he was, in between jobs and was helping us, and now he works as an executive for our company.
That's such a cool story. It's a bunch of college friends.
Yeah, yeah, it's crazy.
Now, why did you decide to specifically you could have done a million go-to-market strategies. Why did you decide specifically to spend your time on journalists? Did it just happen or there was something within you that you really felt that would move the needle?
It just seemed like the easiest path to like. We knew it was just a matter of emailing journalists and letting them know about it to a certain degree, you know. And anyone can go find journalists, make an Excel sheet, and shoot emails. And so that's why we did it. Even with paid ads on the digital ad front, like there was so much to learn during that time, and I learned like the basics of it. But there's like paid ad specialists, and there's a lot of money that you need to spend to experiment in that space. So, like money we didn't have. So we just took all the methodologies that growth hackers, I guess, now do, um, to not, yeah, to not spend money and to just grow this company.
Okay, so that was just your quickest route to get it in front of more people's eyeballs.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah, interesting. Wow. Now, at what point did you start no at what point did you find out that there's this whole world of pitch competitions?
I think we were always just kind of like I guess that fell into the PR strategy as well. Like we were always just looking for places we could tell more people about our product. I mean, sampling has historically been the most effective way of getting new customers, and it's a big campaign push that we're going to try to do in the future. But um, pitch competitions were also an easy way to target, a big group of people and let them know about us.
I want to talk about sampling in a minute, but first I threw out pitch competitions because that's where we essentially met. But just to take our audience, pitch competitions are where companies usually who want to get funded, I don't know if it's always the case, but they pitch their slide deck, their deck of why this company should deserve some sort of grant or why they should have investors um, invest in them, and they usually have a cash incentive. Number one, you get an audience there, and you also have a cash incentive at a lot of them, whether
Yeah,
it's $1,000, 5,000, $10,000. So that's pretty cool. Do
yeah.
you
I think
did
we won $10,000 at LA Tech Fair. No, I'm trying. Was that? Did you go to LA Tech Fair?
I have been there, but I wasn't at their pitch competition.
Oh, I'm trying to remember where we met.
We met
But
at the
LA Tech Fair was.
WeWork. It wasn't LA Tech Fair. It was at WeWork in I think it was Culver Century City. It was across from the Century City Mall.
Oh yeah, with the Whole Foods buyer, and I do remember that with the Whole Foods buyer and the Soul Cycle um, founder.
I remember you more than them. I shouldn't tell. Hopefully, they don't
Yeah,
see this replay.
yeah. That's right. That's right. I do remember that. That was where we were. We ended up winning that competition also. That was cool.
Oh, cool! Wow. So that's pretty cool. Did you go more for the feedback and the audience, or for the cash prize, or they were both incentives and you weren't really thinking about it?
Yeah, both incentives. Weren't thinking about it. We're like, we're. I mean, I love sharing my product with people. I take my product every single day. It's pretty easy for me to pitch to people. Uh, this company, we've built.
I didn't ask about when we spoke about the product. I didn't ask if there is. So I want to get. I want to ask. I'll ask now. Is there a limit to how much you can take of this product with the mints and the gum?
So, like with anything, so for our energy and focus one specifically, like with anything, there is like an upper limit to how much caffeine anyone can take. But I will say you can take a whole pack of our gum, and it's still going to be less caffeine than a large like venti coffee from Starbucks. Like the way we develop our products is for optimization. So every piece has half a cup of coffee in it, two pieces is 1 cup of coffee, and there's 9 pieces per pack. So you could, like, the concept of microdosing has become more popular these days, but you can microdose your caffeine in a way where you're not burning yourself out, cracking yourself out in the same way that all these other coffee brands and energy drink brands are basically just like injecting as much caffeine as they can into you to wake you up. And that's in the long term very, very bad for you, obviously.
Right. Okay. So back to the go to market strategy. At what point? At what point did you go from, I guess, pitch competitions? At that time, when you were doing pitch competitions, were you sampling yet?
We were sampling, but not to the oh, I mean, we were going to competitions like CrossFit competitions and doing sampling at those, but not sampling in the same way that we do now, which is in store. We're in Whole Foods nationwide, so we're doing like in store promos, in store sampling, or outside of like a CVS or something.
What happened first? Did you get on? What year did you get onto Shark Tank?
Right before COVID, like
Okay.
literally right before COVID. And then our episode aired during like the first month of COVID. Ryan was the first person I saw during COVID lockdown, because our Shark Tank episode was airing.
Wow.
Yeah. And so he decided to come over and we decided to watch together. And all of our investors and everyone lined up on a Zoom screen and we all watched it at the same time.
Oh wow, that's fun.
Yeah, it was fun.
At what? I guess I'll segue into that. At the time of Shark Tank, were you in stores yet?
Were we in stores? We were in CVS, I think. We were in a few thousand CVS stores at that point, but not in Whole Foods. So we're in every Whole Foods now. We're in about 4,000 Walmarts. I think we're in like 7,200 CVS stores, and we're in Erewhon, Equinox, and just a bunch of random mom and pop shops. Festival Foods in the Midwest. We're in 40 stores there. Yeah.
Cool. How did you, I really should start at production. At what point did you go from doing a one-time Indiegogo production to doing consistent productions?
I would say maybe year three. Yeah, like four. The scaling of our company has been so operationally focused because now it's about forecasting properly, especially with these retailer opportunities, and then it's about factoring the capital as efficiently as possible. So the priorities shifted from answering customer service emails to how do we balance the books in the best way possible so that we know money in, money out scenarios alongside growth.
So you have to become hyper focused on your cash flow essentially.
Yeah, I mean that's Brian handles a lot of the cash flow side of things, but that definitely becomes a big part of it. Tyler obviously handles forecasting now. I handle the other stuff like from the marketing, growth, marketing, management, and that's kind of how our roles are divided up. And then obviously we all overlap.
Cool. I'm just trying to piece all the moving parts here. We
Yeah.
we we covered the product. We covered the initial Indiegogo launch. We covered you. We covered you actually. You and your and your I apologize. I forgot Tyler's role.
Yeah, Tyler, Chief Operational Officer.
Right, chief
COO.
operating officer. We covered you actually going and getting into as many journalists, reaching as many journalists as possible. We got into you getting into a bunch of stores, but I just want to focus on the timeline. When did it go from? You did say you had your investors watching your Shark Tank. I remember watching the Shark Tank, and I liked your response. They wanted a lot.
Yeah,
You had a good
yeah.
response for them. But it sounds like you already had investors by that point. You're saying you watched the video with the investors, the Shark Tank video. When did you start getting investors? At what point? And what was the reason you looked for investors when you seem to be so focused on being as scrappy as possible before then?
Well, we knew that we needed that next phase of growth. Um, you know, we just need to expand beyond the speed that at which we're growing the company. And so BAM Ventures came in as our first investor. And our biggest investor actually is Apollo Ono, who's like an eight-time Olympian, eight-time Winter Olympian. He's considered like the greatest Winter Olympian of all time. Um, so he's a good friend and our biggest investor. And now we're closing our our biggest round of financing right now, which I'll disclose once it closes. But I'm flying out to Europe to actually this weekend to close that deal.
Congrats. Hope it goes very smoothly and very successfully.
Thanks. Yeah, it's going well so far. So we'll see what
Okay.
happens.
Hopefully, we'll
Yeah,
hear some news and we'll have the follow up with our audience.
yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So, and did those investors come to you or did you go to them?
Uh, we are in all these like it was like both talking to each other. We obviously didn't know how to raise money at that period, so we were learning from our, friends that have gone through it. And uh, yeah, I guess we're all part of the same like circles. Um, and BAM is one of the best investment groups in like Los Angeles. It's Brian Lee who started LegalZoom. Uh, and then started Honest Company, started Shoe Dazzle. Like he's just a billionaire, like rock star entrepreneur. But primarily focused on CPG. He was also the first investor in Honey, which obviously sold to PayPal for like $4 billion or something crazy. So he yeah, like the conversation started. I forgot. Oh, this is a crazy story, actually. So I was in an elevator for an incubator because we were wondering whether we should go the incubation route or whether we should go our private investor route. And I'm in the elevator, and Brian Lee is in the elevator with me. I had no idea who he was, but he's like, "Are you Kent from Neuro?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah." And he's like, "Hey, yeah, don't take this incubator's money. I'll go and invest in you personally." And so we met for coffee literally a week later, and he ended up, he like heard the pitch about our company and ended up investing in us. So,
That's
and
a
he ended up being our
crazy
first investor.
story.
Oh yeah,
That's
it
a
was
crazy
crazy.
story. Did you know him before that? Did you know of him before
No,
then?
I knew of him. I didn't know what he looked like at all though. So
Wow.
yeah, yeah. Now I'm thinking about it. I was like, holy crap! Like that was a whole part in our lives where that happened.
Looking back, I mean, at that time you did not know much about investing. Do you see, looking back, that you know a lot more about investing? Do you see why he invested in your company?
Oh, I mean, definitely, especially at the stage we were at and the growth trajectory we had. Absolutely. So it was
How,
it was cool.
if
Yeah.
I press a little harder, you were new to that. How did the negotiations, whatever you're comfortable sharing, I'm happy with, but how did the negotiations work?
Yeah, I mean, the negotiations were absolutely terrible. Like in the sense that like it's so nice. I love the fact that he's such a good person and his group, like Rich, that entire group of investors are such good people because in no way did they try to take advantage of us. Like they kind of guided us through the process of how we should value ourselves, how much money we should raise, so on and so forth. And, you know, ended up putting in that capital. And even to this day, they're incredibly supportive across the board. So,
So it sounds like they essentially had the opportunity, so to speak, to take advantage. Like you were right for people to take advantage of you just because
oh,
you
yeah.
did not have the experience. And he not only did he invest money in, but he really consulted you and guided you so you were at the proper valuation. So he essentially helped you negotiate against him, so to speak.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
It like, I mean, we owe a lot to them. Like they're absolutely incredible and incredibly supportive throughout that whole process. And even now, they reinvested in us down the line again. But Um, Even then, like they're always so supportive in how they push us forward.
Wow. And is there what would you say the reason why it was worth not going the incubation route? And if you could take us a little bit, what an incubation route is?
I mean, these incubators wanted to take 20% of our business with a very small, and like when I say very small, like $1,000 investment, like literally just for the memorandum. Uh, Put in absolutely no capital, but providing their resources to by taking a fifth of our company. And Ryan and I just had a gut feeling that like we saw all the other companies in there, that were working out of that incubator and being like, what would they really be providing us, alongside all these other companies like that are also starting out. Like we're just living in a frat house basically. And they're taking advantage of like that one company that does succeed. So um yeah,
You didn't think
you know,
that even though they're taking advantage of the one that does succeed, that they could actually empower one of you to succeed?
I mean they definitely might have for sure. But from a gut feeling perspective, the way they approached us, the way they were pressuring us to take the deal just didn't sit well with us. And ultimately we decided not to do it. And you know that was the right choice.
I will say something. I hope I'm correct. You could correct me, but I'll tell you what my gut is. You do not. If you see someone trying to pressure you into a deal, you run.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they like
Yeah,
what
like if it's a good enough deal, let's discuss it. If we have to take it now and tomorrow won't be good enough, something's off.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
So
And I like that approach.
it's
I
a
do understand the people who like the project because they don't have to, they don't want to, they just want a quick deals. They want to hustle as much as possible, as quickly, and close as much as possible. Whereas your approach just takes a lot longer.
yeah. I mean, everything takes everything good takes time. You know, just in my opinion, and it's okay. Like we live in such a fast-paced world, but this is also a very recent development for things to be getting egregious valuations um, based on nothing. So,
Got you. Now I'm very curious about this group. You're making me really like them.
oh, they're awesome. BAM Ventures.
Bam
Also, as a
Ventures.
heads up, I have a call in 2 minutes.
Okay.
Uh, so
So we will. Wow, it's. Oh, well, I
yeah,
guess we'll have to go. We'll have to go again at another time. But it's been amazing. Thank you. I guess we'll have to follow up. I'll ask you about one follow up
yeah. I
question.
mean, oh yeah. If there's any like closing remarks or any
Yeah,
questions you want to ask, yeah,
yeah, for sure. But thank you to our audience. Thank you to our audience. They are now all over nationwide. I've seen them all over the place. Thank you for listening. This is episode 9 of the Brand Spotlight. We are streamed to YouTube, Facebook Live, LinkedIn Live, and we were restreamed as an audio podcast to all the platforms: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, etc., Google Podcasts, etc. Kent, thank you so much for sharing your time. If you have any parting words of advice, and where can we find you?
yeah. Thanks, Joe. Parting words of advice. I mean, I feel like I said that, and maybe in that last remark, but good things take time, and don't be pressured into the speed at which everyone else around you may be moving, because that doesn't necessarily make it the right way. And you know, J.R.R. Tolkien has that quote: "Not all those who wander are lost." And sometimes it takes experience, struggle, and a little bit of wandering to find what your true calling is. So you can find us at Whole Foods nationwide at the cash wrap. You can find us in CVS in the memory and focus section. You can find us in Walmart nationwide. And then you could also find us on our website at getneuro.com.
Awesome.